Okay, so part 2 now with Tuts, where we're going to jump in on McDonald's. We talked about so much stuff, right?
Yeah.
And we hadn't even got to McDonald's, and McDonald's is his...
It's such a huge body of work. So the reason that we are doing this in 2 parts is because there's such an incredible amount of work to go through. So.
But you sort of forget, you think, oh, Tuts, so much McDonald's, but there was all that stuff before, which I couldn't believe.
Well, we could have talked about skid marks for
so good.
Another half an hour.
Yeah, and then there's the airline stuff, the showers. It's brilliant. So anyway, part 2, this is going to be firmly McDonald's, and then his time in Chicago, where it was more than McDonald's. There's a whole load of Samsung and Coke and everything. So I think it's a good way to break it up. I'm massively excited about the American side of it as well. How Sundial came about, has a safety truck thing for Samsung.
Yeah.
The Coke Small World machines. There's so much to go at. I think we're going to have to really motor. So yeah.
And just, he's sitting right here, so should we turn his microphone up?
Yeah, okay.
Welcome back, listeners behind the billboard. We are here with Mark Tutssel for part 2. So I'm sure you all enjoyed part 1 last week. We are eager to get started, so we won't have our usual monologue. Can
I just caveat that I actually said it wrong then? Because I said part 2 was going to be in America, but we're doing part 2. We're starting with McDonald's.
Yeah, I mean, we had so much work to get through. I think it's fine, and we had such an amazing chat at the beginning of the.
I think we'll speed
podcast.
up a bit more now.
I think
well, not speed up, but I think, like you said, we're in the work now.
We're in the zone.
So, Mark, we're in the zone. We're going to be in the McDonald's zone. It's amazing.
In the fast zone.
Exactly.
Fast food zone.
It's amazing to think that part 1 was so much work at Leo's in London. So much iconic, brilliant work, and we hadn't even touched McDonald's. So just quickly, before we do get into 2 or 3 of these executions, we wanted to know, when you were at Leo's, were you CDs on Macca's straight away, or you wrote on it for a bit and then you became CDs? Is that correct?
We'd at the time, we'd had. I mean, I'd worked on McDonald's now for probably 30 something years.
Right.
And when we won the business, it was this American brand that came over that had sort of vignettes of people juggling it up in Adland, jingles. There's a difference at McDonald's you'll enjoy. McDonald's makes your day, etc., etc. And it lacked any humanity, any kind of any thinking, really.
Yeah. And
we made the breakthrough when we did a film with Ken Loach, Shopping, and it really sort of, we found the feel of the brand, the authenticity of the brand, and we produced a massive work very, very quickly, from Birds and the Bees to Day in the Life of McDonald's with Tony Kaye shots. We had we had Clever Daddy, we had Brotherly Love, we had Mike Lee shooting for us.
Wow.
We had like amazing directors, Kirk Jones, and when we got this feel for the brand, and it was a brand that wasn't trying too hard, and it summed up beautifully that McDonald's and then had become as British as fish and chips.
Right.
And that feeling has never changed.
No.
We worked on it for obviously many years. My first interaction with McDonald's was an opportunity. Richard Russell, who I spoke of earlier on, who's not only a brilliant copywriter, he's a fine golfer, and he and I had this opportunity of doing a small program ad for McDonald's, who were sponsors of the Ryder Cup, and the Ryder Cup that year was at the Belfry, and we thought, well, let's do something really interesting. We were fiddling around and just came up with this idea of 2 clubs coming together, the United States of America playing Europe.
Yes.
And we put them, so it was like a joust, 2 of them against each other. And we saw this beautiful opportunity. There was the hamburger.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the hamburger, it was 2 golf clubs.
Yes.
And then as soon as you put the logo, bottom right, it instantly becomes a hamburger.
Yes.
And so that inextricable link with the brand, they were active participants in the Ryder Cup, not just a proud sponsor making money off the back of the Ryder Cup. And then we said, okay, how do we make this bigger? So we found out that the hierarchy from McDonald's in Oakbrook were flying into Birmingham. So we literally took over the poster all the posters at Birmingham Airport.
Oh, wow.
And it became a really big thing. And it was beloved by everybody and became the sort of the gold standard for the brand. It went around the world. What it served to do was really activate the appetite for creativity in the poster arena for McDonald's geographically. And
it's really interesting because sorry to jump in, but I imagine it was quite a dry brief. Sponsorship briefs are like that. And also it's easy now, not easy, but 2023 McDonald's is probably one of the most exciting brands to work on. It can lead to fame, fortune, awards. But I imagine at the time, like you just alluded to there, was it on the cusp of being just one of another accounts rather?
Well, it was hard because the work wasn't exciting, and then the breakthrough was made. The shopping commercial, was just a slice of life. And then we went on to produce, compensation for being sixth. Shearer came to the table, and we started to produce really, really just beautiful, rich communication that people saw themselves in.
Yes.
It became part of the sort of rich tapestry of British life. It became as British as fish and chips.
Yeah.
It didn't try too hard, but it had one guiding principle, was that the food or the brand had to play a pivotal part in the storytelling.
Yes.
If you take the brand out or if you take the food out, the whole thing unravels. Yeah. So it just can't be a piece of sponsored entertainment.
It's interesting because the next one we're looking at here, the McDouble with cheese for 99p, again, it's just it's like a price offer in effect, but it's such a brilliant. Can you just briefly explain it? It's done by Lawrence Quinn and Mark Norcutt, our friends of the show. What?
Yeah, I mean, Mark and Lawrence are a fantastic team, and they would had this opportunity to do this. I remember walking to their desk and looking over their shoulder and chatting to them about this. Yeah. And they were such perfectionists, workaholics. They spent every hour at the agency, and they come up with this idea of cheese and the mouse hole. And I remember saying to Lawrence, I said, "There's something missing there, isn't there?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Yeah, well, there's something missing." He went, and he looked, and he went, "Oh yeah." And then he drew the other
half of
the other half.
So for our listeners, there's a mouse hole, but like Tuts has alluded to, there's just one. So if you put the second one in, it makes the.
So basically, it mimicked the McDonald's logo, which is then synonymous with cheese,
and that gets into D&AD, and it's a price offer.
And again, it's like the 20p ice cream is exactly the same. The hot dog.
So that was the I alluded to when we were talking about John West and the cropping of the logo. Is it? With the second mouse hole, you can legitimately have the conversation about the removal of the M or the logo.
Yeah.
It makes it infinitely better. And I think McDonald's, again, is one of those brands that can do that and have done that. And
well, this is the hot dog's an example of that, which is a great point. This doesn't have a logo on it, but it has 7 logos on it. If you choose to look at it.
Take us back to that meeting. Sorry, because you were doing it in part.
Yeah, so we spend our life at East Finchley, with a brilliant client, John Hawkes, who hated advertising. I remember presenting one script to him once and saying, "Oh my God, no, that's advertising. I don't want advertising. Right. I want communication that resonates with people. I want communication that rewards people. I want the brand to be valuable in people's lives. I want people to love this brand for what we do and the service we provide." And he constantly reminded us of that. And you think of Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's, he famously said, "We're not in the hamburger business. We're in the people business. We're here to serve people. When people walk into the restaurant, I want people to feel like kings and queens." And so, it was always about how do we create enjoyment in people's lives. And this was a new product that they introduced and they tried. And we sit in a meeting and said hot dog. And as soon as I'm a constant doodler, just to sort of occupy my mind when I'm taking brews, and just doodled a hot dog. And then as I was doodling it, I realized actually I was doodling golden arches.
Right.
And then obviously, how do you persuade them to take their logo off when the logo is already, and if you look at it, it's embedded in that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Jeez, you're right. I mean, 6. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
There's 6 logos.
So again, it's simple. It's distilled. It's distillation.
And at this point, I mean, it's obvious, really, but when you look back, but the red is becoming such a strong piece of branding. But you're treating it in a very graphic way, which, dare I say it, KFC have been ripping off quite mercilessly for the last few years. But I can see a visual language so strong.
Going back to The Economist, going back to Guinness, going back to all of the iconic brands that have a look and a feel and a visual note. Red, obviously, synonymous with the brand and obviously the golden arches, but also the typography. We designed our own typeface. If you look at the typography, it's all based on the golden arches.
Yes.
And so this beautiful typeface that we apply to every form of communication, from menu cards right through to television, right through to outdoor and press.
Yes.
And again, that's just a brand owning its look and feel.
So we're going to move swiftly on, I think. We're going to take you away from London, Mark.
Yeah.
We're going to get you over to Chicago. But I just want to say, that must have been quite a tenure. Well, it was quite a tenure in London, and you had this incredible success. Did you even imagine you could have so much more success in America? Did you think, wow, that's that? Or did you think, no, I'm going off and I'm going to do twice that in the States? Or what was the vibe?
No, I think my thinking was I was naturally part of a sort of global community, and I got to meet so many interesting people with interesting points of view, different approaches, different styles, and just working with a different mindset for me was liberating. In Britain at the time, it was fabulous. I mean, there was nothing wrong. We were the best agency in London. We were the best agency in the world, if awards are a barometer of that. And we had a department that was prolific and just determined to beat the day before. And so we were playing at the peak of our game, and we had clients who embraced creativity, who really believed in the power and the value of creativity, who wanted to produce world-class product. But I always felt inside me, if I'd not worked in America, had I really worked in advertising? Mm-hmm. I go back to the Mad Men, and Leo Burnett was one of the original Mad Men, alongside, Birnbach and David Ogilvy, and I was drawn to it, and through Michael Conrad, who was the worldwide chief creative officer, he persuaded me to go over and work in the department in Chicago.
I was going to ask, because I imagine Nick would have gone to Lowe's or to JWT, and I think you would have, you're both huge characters, personalities. You, like you say, you probably think, right, what's next? Not arrogantly, but you've left the place in fantastic hands. There's no bigger challenge in the States.
Yeah, no, and also as well, Chicago had major iconic brands. They had money, they had scale, but they had this burning appetite to be great. And if I could help in any way, shape or form, then that would be an opportunity for both them and for me. So went to the States, and obviously with having run McDonald's for many decades and produced the best in class communication for McDonald's within the system globally, they wanted to bring that up to that level. American posters, I was fascinated by posters.
I was gonna ask you, if you cast your mind back to when you were doing stuff with the US beforehand anyway, but if you cast your mind back to landing in Chicago and going, right, let's immerse ourselves in American culture and media so that we are understand the media that you're creating for. What were the big things that you saw as the differences, talking about posters specifically, outdoor media being different in the US versus what you were doing here in Europe?
Just the sheer scale and the way they populate everything. I mean, we have a lot of posters, obviously in the urban areas, but in the States, they reside in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
en masse. You're driving on a road.
Is it the driver's mentality? Is it because the country's so vast and
and that's where this came from. These pole posters appear everywhere.
The milkshake
the
execution. Yes,
but the actual format, the pole. format poster. They appear everywhere, and they're like telegraph poles in the States.
Yeah,
and so again, coming back to the product has to play a pivotal part in the communication. So this was the introduction of a new milkshake. It was triple thick. And it's a product demonstration. It's a Procter & Gamble idea.
Yeah.
It was literally, it does exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
So how do you do that in an exciting way? The team presented this, which was genius, rejected by the media department because you can't play with the structure of the media space. We don't own the space. We're hiring the format 2 by X by Y, but we don't own the post.
Right.
And the art director, who was an ex-military Marine, was taking none of this. He was going to find a way to bring this to fruition.
Did he get
so he actually spoke to the suppliers and got permission to paint the pole in the colours of the straw, white with a red stripe going through it, as long as he returned it back to its original colour.
Brilliant. I love
a very
that.
simple request, a simple ask, and it was fine. And they produced it, and it was the first one. I'm thinking again, simple, easy, again, coming back to simple, easy enjoyment. I'm loving it. That feeling, not a tagline. You look at that and you go, I like that. I love that.
Yeah.
It's something, well, like you say, it's hardwired to the product. It's a product demo, but it's so rewarding. I mean, I did actually write this morning, it still stands up today, which I won't go on about. But I think it's, well, it must have been you must have been felt really rewarded seeing this and thinking, right, what next? You got sort of, it's that one in the onion bag.
Yeah.
But then after this came the on our little timeline we've created, we're going to put Sundial next, which really, we had the team on, Gary and Vince in our first series, and they were remote. They didn't fly over.
Yeah.
But they told us all about it. And it's one of mine and Dan's and many people's possible favourite ever.
Yeah.
They told us all about the NASA scientists.
The NASA part of that story was
that?
Just...
That was incredible.
It blew my
Were
mind.
you involved in that NASA? Did you say to them, get the guy from NASA?
No. I mean, again, you coming back to the brand and the opportunity the brand presents. So for me, any space is an opportunity to produce great product. The brief for this was very, very tight. It was basically to showcase the breakfast menu.
Yes.
And to communicate the times of opening. So you have a timeline and you have all of the products available for consumption in the morning. So how do you then turn that? Where's the magic? Where's the alchemy? Where's the piece that really, where's the lateral thinking that takes it to the next level? And they came up with the idea of the shadow. And so by the time it got to 12 o'clock, it was perfect. So then they enlisted the help of the scientists in question. The irony, the actual poster itself, where this was the perfect mirror image of the logo as a shadow, was right outside Wrigley Field.
Yeah.
So
Which is what? Sorry, what's that?
Right outside Wrigley Field. It's like
The baseball
right
stadium.
outside the Emirates, right outside White Hart Lane, Anfield. So it was in right at the heartbeat of the city, and so had this huge audience as well, and it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Do you think? I know we're going to move on a bit quicker, but for me, I'm going to have to say this again because it's such a brilliant expression. The theatre of the streets. Think of the streets as your stage, and your goal is to earn a standing ovation. I mean, for me, this is the epitome of that. Did you feel that was like one of the best
totally
examples?
Yeah,
of this?
I mean, and also it lit up the department, and it lit up the client as well, who said, "Oh my gosh, we've been producing these dull, predictable posters." Which basically are information. You're going back to posters being a community notice board. Well, just putting notice board times and figures up on a piece of paper is not communication. And this is for a brand that's about joy. It's about enjoyment. It's about pleasure. This is simple food, a simple fare that's supposed to give you something, a smile, a little moment of joy in life. And so this little moment of joy was brought to you courtesy of McDonald's, but it's all about what McDonald's is giving you. This huge array of food at breakfast time. We're open for business, for your business, between 6 a.m, cracker sparrows, right through to the lunchtime. So it was a piece of product information, but presented in a non-predictable fashion.
And so, I mean, these first two are into your early tenure at Chicago.
Yeah.
Did this represent a massive shift in that US clients' behavior for seeing stuff like this? Were they just not doing stuff like this and like you'd done in the UK before?
They were doing some amazing television. The one thing Chicago did was beautiful award-winning work for Hallmark, for Altoids. You think of Marlboro Cowboy, forget the subject matter for a second, with Tony Scott, and the work with Joe Pitka for McDonald's was amazing. I don't know if you remember the swing commercial, the little baby swinging back and then laughing, then crying, then laughing, then crying, and then you reveal the logo. So they were doing beautiful human TV and film. Their outdoor work was average at best. And I think what we managed to do was persuade the client, to present to the client opportunity to really celebrate the outdoor medium. They spend more money on outdoor than anybody. Yeah. In the UK, and for me, it's a crime to put average work out into the public domain for a brand that's so present in people's lives.
They're a top 10 spender in every market for outdoor.
And you just see lazy, predictable work so often. And if you see the odd idea that's got half an idea and we all sit there and applaud it, everything should be brilliant in my mind.
What I think's brilliant, about this is you're putting the product at the heart of things. It's that, I think Paul Arden said it, or someone that put it in the middle. Don't hide it, And what you're doing, the one before we just seen, which is the milkshake. It's you could have just run a poster with a milkshake going, hey, it's triple thick. But then you've used your localized poster.
And we often talk about the power of context, and this is kind of the one of the original dynamic ads, given that it works at a certain time because of the product, and beyond 12 o'clock, it's not. You don't see it, which I think that's the power of context that we talk about for dynamic ads in digital out home. But seeing that on something that's a special,
it's a great point. But I think live advertising and experiential advertising, everything is experiential.
Yeah.
Everything is a value exchange between people and brands. And the first lesson I learned in this business was that we do not have a divine right to people's attention. We intrude in people's lives. We have to give people something in return for their investment in us. And if you don't, then you're in trouble.
After the Sundial, so I imagine I've just wrote this little thing here, like what it's like your sensational debut album. It's like Oasis, definitely, maybe, right? You've done this Sundial. Like, what on earth are you going to do next? And I remember Gary and Vince telling us, I've sort of can't quite remember, but they said they went through hundreds of sort of follow-up ideas, but they came upon this one, fresh salads, where the poster's made of fresh salad every day. Were you involved?
It was on the same board as well. Wrigley Field.
It was on the same board, and it was the standard had been set. And they presented. So again, going back to it's how do you create inherent drama around the product? How do you create an idea that really captures your attention and, more importantly, captures your imagination? So they have 16 varieties of lettuce in McDonald's salad, which is a rational product benefit. It's all about quality, and it's all about the ethos of the brand. And they came in with this idea of fresh salad, a poster made up of real salad. And I said, fabulous, fabulous. But I kind of feel like I've seen it before, but I haven't. But I kind of feel why couldn't you grow it? And most people would have just looked at the floor. They lit up like beacons and went, "Yeah."
Oh, so they hadn't shown it growing at the time.
No. So then they went away and they seeded it. Can we place the seeds? Can we place the seeds? And in over 2 weeks, it grew on the poster out of soil. So they worked on the how to do it. They were just on the cusp of doing it. And again, it's that little thing. It's that little bit more.
The extra nudge, yeah.
It's that little thing. It's the idea is there, but it would be so much stronger. You have a captive audience. You think of people walking past that poster on a daily basis. It's your local poster. It's the one at the end of your street. Yeah. And you see it over the course of 2 weeks start to seed and start to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow to fruition. There's nothing fresher than the freshly grown.
It takes us
salad.
back to your salad cream position as well.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, it could have been a half-eaten
Yeah.
billboard, but it wasn't.
Totally.
But everyone who drove past that on their daily commute for 2 weeks saw that thing.
And this again is another wonderful example of theatre of the streets. You're creating. There's your stage.
Yeah.
X by Y. How do you fill that stage with content that captures people's imagination, grabs them by the eyeballs, and then rewards them? Because if you have to reward people, otherwise you go.
It's so good. I mean, I'm just looking at it now. Just it's like a sort of it's just one of the best.
So it feels like your transition from UK out of home master to US out of home master was relatively smooth.
Yeah, I mean, we forged a great relationship. They have a fantastic marketing department there, and one of the goals we set ourselves was to be synonymous with creativity. Marketeers who use creativity to great effect. It's the primary asset in business today. It's the most valuable asset in business today, and this was the client who truly believed that. So we set ourselves a goal of becoming creative marketeer here at Cannes. But we needed to prove that over time and space. So we needed to win awards. And if you think of the creative marketeer, it's not somebody who's done one or two good ads. It's somebody who has demonstrated depth and breadth of thinking, quality thinking in all of the communication channels available, but also the geographies around the world. And so I sat down with the CMO and had this idea of what if we produced a day in the life of McDonald's, and we'll slice the world into time zones, starting in New Zealand, and then we'll move across zone by zone by the hour right across, and we'll finish up with this amazing concert in LA. Mm-hmm. So it creates competition within their market, within the McDonald's marketing departments. So each time zone is charged with producing world-class theatre of the streets.
Right.
So as the sun comes up in Auckland and comes across the world, we're going to surprise the planet with brilliant theatre all the way across the world. Example of that being Manila. Traffic jams for hours and hours and hours trying to go through toll booths. So we turned the toll booth into a McDonald's drive-through. And as you wait 3 hours to get through to the toll, you don't pay toll. You get a free cup of coffee courtesy of McDonald's, which is now made out to look like a toll booth.
Right.
One little moment, one piece of theatre, courtesy of the brand, move across, and move, et cetera. So everybody had this amazing appetite, pardon the pun, but this incredible appetite to produce world-class outdoor work. So theatre of the streets became the brief to everybody.
Yeah.
What theatre are you going to create? How are you going to own the city? Own Tokyo, own Auckland, own Sydney, own London, own Chicago, own New York. Produce content that really does deliver against what we're trying to do as a brand, but also ideas that really populate the streets and reward the people who inhabit the streets. And we produced 10, 15, 20 ideas that were all genius. And it created a competitive spirit, but a healthy competitive spirit that everybody's standard went higher and higher and higher and higher. And you saw this colossal leap in people's imagination and people's ambition to produce world-class outdoor.
I imagine as a creative, quite a lot of brands or creative directors might say that and say, come on, let's do it. But then for you in Chicago or McDonald's, you do it. Make so as a creative, you go, actually, this could happen.
Totally.
Whereas I've been around the block lots. You download your brain onto a bit of paper and give it to someone, and nothing ever. Some people don't even get back to you. Whereas on this, it feels like you were very accountable. The work was really considered, and so much ran. I mean, I think we're just touching the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, totally. Yeah,
what we're looking at. We got to keep going.
Yep.
I'm going to take you downtown Chicago now. We're looking at a car dangling off the 17th floor of the landmark Marina Towers apartment building, seemingly about to plummet to the ground below. Just below the car is a billboard with the tagline, "Are you in good hands?" with an Allstate Insurance logo. I'm going to say a staggering stunt, audacious, real, scary. Theatre of the streets, drama on the streets, death on the streets. Tell us more, Tuts.
Health and safety.
Again, Allstate. If you drive the streets of the States, it's littered with insurance companies.
Right. Okay.
And Allstate are obviously synonymous with insurance, but certainly in that part of the States. Are you in good hands is one of the oldest lines in advertising.
Right.
I mean, it's an historic line that's run forever, using the hands, and it's that confidence that you have in insurance is all about emotion. It's not about I'm insured. You're safeguarding people's emotion and people's loves.
And in the US in particular, it's that people choose their insurance companies based on their parents.
Exactly.
It's really is a family.
So it's obviously a lot of family influence there, and so you got this whole idea of car insurance. So how do we make the go-to first stop port of call for car insurance being Allstate? And the team just had this incredible idea, because if you look at Chicago, if you're the main river that runs through the city, there's these two iconic buildings, Marina Towers, and if you look at any books on the iconic skyscrapers in America, you'll see the Chrysler Building, you see Empire State, and you'll see Marina Towers, and this was a great opportunity. So having a car dangling out the bottom half of the building, which is basically car lots all the way down. Had to close off the floors above and below, and they were all obviously engineered and dangled there, but incredibly safe. And this theatre was out there. Helicopters were flying over, all the news stations in Chicago were filming it. Yeah. People were ringing the police to say there's a car hanging off the building. It was, if you talk about a wildfire effect that literally spread like wildfires through the city, and it was on every news station. So the ability to a simple, humble outdoor execution became mainstream news. And my brief in Chicago was always, there's the brief, but my brief to you is get on the news.
Yeah.
Sundial, massive 30-hour, 2-hour presentation on national TV.
With the NASA scientists.
There, the fresh salads, on how on earth they do that. National television, this was on national television.
Yeah.
So all of the main pieces of theatre literally spent most of the time on national television.
I suppose
it's right, because in that instance, in the kind of the will it go viral conversation, is you're using out of home as the canvas to tell a story, and you're allowing an audience to be involved in it, and that includes the media.
Totally.
So includes
it's everybody.
It's audacious that they did this, and and you will get the
And I imagine with every new one you did, you'd probably learn a little bit more on how to do it, and so you were crafting always how to sort of surprise the media, like, because these things are always picked up, aren't they? If you do them well enough. I mean, even looking at it now, and like, I love audacious things. I'm looking at it thinking, fucking hell, you've had to get a car on the edge. You've put a poster on the side of a place where it's never normally is. Yeah. I mean, already people should be shutting this down now, wouldn't they? Because,
and this is 2007. You've seen people stand on buildings. You've seen people, you've seen lots of things like that over time, recently. But this was with ahead of the curve. And going back to teapots.
Yes.
Araldite, again, it's a visual spectacle.
Yes.
This
we're going to move on again. Sorry, Tuts. My blood is red and black. So this is Leo Burnett San Paolo. And I'm going to probably say this wrong, but forgive me. Hemoba Esporta Club Vitoria. Is that right?
Vitoria FC.
Yes. And what was
so it was the brief here was basically it was for the blood bank.
Right.
People were dying because the blood banks were drying up, and the younger audience weren't giving blood. So how do you get them to invest in supplying their blood to obviously raise the blood banks? We had this idea, which is for me is a genius idea. So the goal was to give blood, young people to give blood. You think of football, the beautiful game. When you think of Brazil, there's no more, maybe the Argentinians, but passionate about their game.
Religion and football.
It's a religion and football. Those are the two things. And as Pelé said, the beautiful game. So Vitoria FC were approached, and they're synonymous for red and black football shirts. So we drained the red out of the shirt, the blood out of the shirt, and just had white football shirts. Right. So the football team were wearing white football shirts with red, black. So they ran out for the first game of the season. and national television. So you got 90 minutes of airtime. Remember,
you managed to embargo that story until it happened. Is it?
90 minutes. So it was until it happened. So they run out on the field.
Wow.
Not in their red and black hoops, white and black hoops. So they run out the field, and like the crowd go, "What's going on?" And then we built it from there.
Wow.
And then as the blood bank level went up and up and up and replenished
over
the course of the season.
Oh wow!
Over the course of the season, each of the lines, the Plimsoll line, went up and up and up and up and up and up till the actual shirt was fully populated by red again, and the blood banks were full to the top of blood. It went viral. It was incredibly successful, and for me, the genius of this is a ambient, experiential, live event, outdoor event. Participation of the nth degree, hundreds of thousands of people participating in it. It's spread like wild geographically around the world, and you actively ask people to do something and participate in the idea, and you would give blood for your club, for your football club,
right?
And so why wouldn't this is giving back to a club that gives their blood to you?
Wow.
And it was a genius idea.
It's another thing I picked up. One of your things, an act, not an ad.
Yeah.
So it's a great example of that, right?
Yeah, I talk a lot about acts, not ads. I think you're looking for activation. You're looking to how to activate a relationship, how to activate participation, how to create action, how to ask people to do something. Not, I look at it, I see it, yes.
Yeah.
What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
And it has to have a purpose. And the purpose is not what a product is and what a product does. A purpose is what a brand believes in.
Yeah.
It's its reason for being. It's its raison d'etre. And if you ask people to actively participating in an interesting way, you create something like that.
I think in our next piece, we're going to look at the small world machines. It's that again, isn't it? It's Coke. It's asking people from either side of India and Pakistan across the border to engage with each other through these digital vending machines. I suppose, was that another big challenge technically rather than the previous one was more of an emotional thing?
Yeah, I mean, if the brief for Coca-Cola is obviously distillation, you distill it right down to its essence. It's happiness,
right?
And the brief here was, where will happiness strike next?
Right.
And this was a Creativity Without Borders project where I put together a team around the world to tackle this. And the idea, actually, the sort of the spark of the idea came from Mexico City,
right?
Where they had this idea of, where will happiness strike next? Imagine if it struck in one of the unhappiest places on the planet,
right,
on the border of Pakistan and India. Had been at war for 60 years. Sydney had this idea of creating a vending machine that we created new technology. So if you think of cameras, they're usually looking down or looking up, never eye to eye, face to face. So we created a new camera through technology, working with a company. I could look at the screen in India, and the person touching the vending machine in Pakistan was looking at me eye to eye. And remember, this is two countries that don't see eye to eye.
Yeah.
There's no interconnection between them. And this was people coming together as a human race. This is happiness coming together and connecting. And if you think of Finky's poster that he did with that young student of the hands coming through the swirling, that's what this brand is about. Yeah. So you're creating happiness, you're creating joy in people's lives through technology, through an outdoor vending machine, through a screen, through a digital screen. And it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
So well. I mean, so well. It's such a wonderfully emotive piece, but then it wouldn't have been anything without the tech to deliver it.
But this is tech serving an idea, because the technology didn't exist. So we had to create the technology to serve the idea. The ambition of the idea was, how do you bring people together? How do you create happiness between two different regions, two different cultures who don't see eye to eye, where happiness doesn't reside? So where will it strike next? It strikes through the vending machine, and happiness is
It's the same as the tech execution in the McDonald's Sundial and salads, though. The question goes back to the creative team. I like this. We can nudge it on.
Yeah.
Go find out how to make that work.
Yeah.
So you find the technical solution to get
rather than hitching your wagon to,
rather than say we need to do something with a face-to-face screen mechanic. It's like, no, here is a great idea, and it's it's anchored in happiness and it's anchored in the brand. Find me some technical solutions to do it. And I think those are always the best briefs when they come to us, because it's all, for us, there are 1,000 ways to do things.
Of course. There's always a solution. There's always a creative solution to any problem. But it's having that passion and that will and that desire to make it happen. And we had a great client here as well. We had an incredible client who was part of it, came on the shoot, and then we had to execute it. We had to go to Pakistan and it kicked off between them, and it was a pretty treacherous, a piece of work to bring to fruition to the level it was.
Am I right in thinking at this time there were another couple of activations around those happiness machines as well? Were there other things happening around the world that
not like this? They were. This was the one that basically sparked everything.
Yeah,
and this is the one that won all the won the Cannes, and actually it was the one piece that took Coca-Cola to Creative Marketeer of the Year that year, because it was combining technology and the fusion of technology and creativity coming together as one.
Do you know what? It just made me think, Tuts, when we sat out earlier having a chat about the tech. You can only see the sort of potential of the tech once it's through the lens of a great creative idea. And it's what was it called? What was the 3D?
The anamorphic stuff we've been talking about. And we still, none of us have seen something which absolutely goes, that's how to use it.
If you don't feel, you should never feel the technology. You should only experience the human value.
Yeah, great.
So our role is to create human value. The value created through that vending machine to the Pakistan population and their brothers and sisters across the border in India was incredible. And the Samsung truck, safety truck.
I was going to say that's the penultimate one we're going to talk about. The tech in this, again, is for a brilliant human enabler and an emotion to save lives, right?
So again, I curated a team around the world to work on Samsung and to produce, stuff that really that served that greater human purpose and humanized the brand from a technology brand to a human brand. And so we had an issue in Argentina, which is a global issue that exists on many one-track roads, that one person was dying every hour in road accidents, in traffic accidents in Buenos Aires, in that catchment area in Argentina. And so that whole act of overtaking, that frustration of being behind a big truck on one track road, and shall I go, and then carnage on the road.
Is it because they've got a lot of single roads?
Single roads, right? They're masses of single roads. And so this is, how can technology create human value? How can this technology, again, this technology didn't exist. It was a simple Wi-Fi that was projected to 4 digital screens that resided on the back. So when you drove up behind the truck, you could see the driver's point of view ahead. So solves a massive problem. And this won titanium at Cannes. It won every single major award in the world for technology. But more importantly, every major HGV manufacturer on the planet were queuing up behind this technology to embrace this, because it was such a brilliant creative fix to a human problem that we face in many, many geographies around the world. And it was just showing how technology can solve many, many problems, but the value was created for the human race.
We spoke to Luciano Chani D'Amelio about this a while back. We featured it on an Instagram feed, but we've never talked about it here. And first of all, he'd said Tuts gave it a 9 ball in the internal awards. He said, I was surprised. Mark helped me. Mark is a talented and very great human being, which is very, very nice of him. He also said, though, was quite telling. He said, of all the awards it won, and it, like you just said, it did win a lot, the most significant was it selected by Time magazine as one of the 25 greatest inventions of 2015, that's amazing, right?
Well, but the thing is that, again, it's you expect that from a brand like Samsung, but what's really happening now is everything we're doing is designed to create a brand that understands humanity, is in the service of humanity, and we're embracing technology, evolving technology, pushing the boundaries of technology to allow people to do what they can do.
Yes.
So that's all we're doing. We're advancing. There's a reason for doing everything. We're not just creating tech for tech's sake. Everything is designed with a purpose behind it, which is to enhance and evolve the human race. And these are great examples of that.
Yeah.
Do we have time?
Well, I just want to ask.
Go on, Dan.
Channy's quote there was quite telling. You being a very talented and great human being, but awarding it a 9 ball. Can you explain to our listeners what awarding a 9 ball?
We have an internal standard, which is the way we evaluate the work, which gives everybody a way of thinking about the quality of the idea and the value of the idea. And it's a scale of 1 to 10, and we call it the 7+ system, where 7 is an idea that's rooted in a great human insight, that has a human purpose. It's a beautiful idea, beautifully executed. 8 ball, which is what you shoot for, has the ability to change behavior. So, we're in how does creativity transform human behavior? How do we have the ability to change the way people think, the way they feel, the way they behave? How do we influence their life in a positive way? So an 8 ball has that ability to change the way people think, feel, and behave. And 9 has the ability to completely change the dynamics of life, and then 10 is to change the world.
I think I once got an 8.
Yeah, 8 is the one. So it creates a little bit of a competition, but it focuses on analyze the work, understand what works, what doesn't work, and it's all about constant reappraisal and improvement, constant improvement, continued improvements. Make it better. It always can be better. Nothing's ever finished. It always can be better. And so 9 for me is how can it impact the human race, and how can it create a massive tidal change in society. So this is a big idea. This is work that creates dynamic business change for the brand and creates dynamic change for safety. And the only winner here is not awards. The only winner here is the human race, saving lives.
Nice way to help creatives along benchmarking their work for the good of society. That I didn't know the ball system, and I love it. I think it's really smart.
Yeah, I mean it's been imitated by most agencies now that have a not dissimilar, or very similar system in play. What it creates is community. What it creates is ambition. What it creates is collective understanding of the standard I expect the work to be. My view is anything that leaves the company with an invisible Leo Burnett signature on has to be of a standard. And the only custodians of that standard are you, the people who create it. And so it's a way of helping each other. And it creates this cultural diversity and this co-creation society that everybody wants to help everybody. So, they have an idea in Buenos Aires and then, okay, we all come together and go, okay, this is genius. This is going to happen. This will happen. Yeah. And now it's how will it happen? And not only how will it happen, how will it be created and executed to the nth degree?
And that's what I think is great, having worked at Leo's for 3 years. It's the great feeling of knowing there is this huge, passionate momentum behind things. It's not just like kind of, well, you might get something through if you go there, or, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's a real belief system that runs throughout the whole
culture.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's the culture. It's a people culture. And I think, if I think of great agencies, every great agency has been founded by a great creative. Yeah. And if you go back to the Mad Men, of which Leo Burnett was one of, I mean, his head of copy is based. Don Draper is based on him.
Yes.
In the series, you had Birnbach and you have David Ogilvy. I did an exhibition once in New York for Advertising Week where I found some old letters of Leo chatting to Bill. And it was like two mates down a pub talking to each other. Oh, great. Like seeing your ad. Oh, I like that. And everybody, it was infectious belief in creativity and its desire to make things amazing. And if you look at that, and then if you look at, Goodby, if you look at Wyden, if you look at Hegarty, and, then you look at Droger and Mother, all of the agencies that, Abbott, Mead, Vickers, all of the great agencies, BMP, and they all had a creative stake in the ground where it was an absolute belief in the power of creativity and the value of creativity, and it just weaves its way into the veins of the system because it's why they exist, and it's what they believe in, and it's their conviction. And I think that you need that in this industry because 9 times out of 10 you can get punched to the floor.
Yeah, you're right.
It's not utopia. You don't win every battle, but you believe that one day you will win that battle, and one day you will come to fruition, and you will make the thing that you truly believe in.
Do you think we've got time for a quick night in a painting? The Airbnb idea, the Van Gogh piece. I think I'll just take us back a slide here. Yeah, so the Van Gogh.
So. This again is just a piece of really smart, original, lateral thinking, and beautifully executed in its art form.
Yes.
The Art Institute of Chicago produced many exhibitions during the calendar year, like many of the major galleries around the world. And this was a special exhibition of the Yellow House, the Yellow House that Van Gogh lived in Arles.
Yeah.
And if you think of the 3 paintings that he produced, they resided in I think the Gare d'Orsay in Paris. I think there was one in Amsterdam, and there was one in Chicago. This was the first time all 3 paintings had come together.
Right.
In one exhibition. So this was a unique exhibition. So the business problem that they faced was that they attracted tourists, a bit like the UK. We've got masses of tourists going to the galleries, but to get Londoners going to galleries or get Chicagoans go to galleries was very, very difficult. So how do you create an idea that really does draw the crowds? So they had this idea of, rather than going to view the painting, imagine if you lived inside Van Gogh's mind and actually lived inside the painting.
Right.
See what he saw as he was lying on that bed before he painted it. Imagine if you could do that. So they had the idea of creating a real physical experiential painting. So that in itself will go. So just go off and make me a Van Gogh painting, please, in the 3-dimensional. So that was audacious and crazy and silly, but we executed it beautifully. And then obviously, how do we then bring it to life and actually create participation? We talked a lot about involving people in it, make it an experience that can be enjoyed and had by many people. And so we approached Airbnb. Thankfully, at the time, Jonathan Mindlehall, Jonathan from the UK, who was my client at Coca-Cola, had moved to be head of Airbnb.
Perfect.
So I picked the phone up to Jonathan and said, mate, I've got this idea. It's got to happen. And he just took about 30 seconds and he went, Tuts, it's got to happen.
Correct.
Endorsed it, supported it, and then we had them on board. And it became this amazing idea. And then we had literally lines of people all the way along the lakefront in Chicago for miles, people queuing up to the exhibition. Brilliant. So it was a magnet. People, it was everywhere, all over the news again. It created such a huge buzz within the city, both within the city, within North America and globally. Yeah. And it became a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to view these 3 incredible paintings in one place at one time, probably the first and probably the only time you'll ever get to experience that. But just the way that they did it, to not only look at the paintings, view the paintings, live inside the painting, live there for 24 hours. So it was
it's
an amazing piece.
It's brilliant. I feel honestly feel slightly exhausted. I feel like it's been billboards without borders. It's been what an amazing few hours. Thank you. I mean, honest to God, I think we could have gone another 2 or 3.
Yeah,
but we've speeded you up there. So
and also, I think we're going to have to do a part 3 and a part 4 because there is other work that was in our original list that we've not spoken.
We'll have a little rest and then.
Yeah. So before we sign off, a couple of other regular segments. Your favorite billboard of all time, and I know this is a really hard question. It's like asking your favorite song or favorite movie, but and it can be for a particular reason or for a moment in time that has affected you or inspired you for some reason. So if you could give us one or two favorites, it could be a campaign rather than
it's very difficult. I keep coming back to when I first obviously London is synonymous with outdoor. As I said, the Cromwell Road was really the mecca for the outdoor arena. And when I first came to London in '79, I was absolutely wide-eyed, like a child in the sweet shop. Just streets were populated by some of the best work you've ever seen in your life. Incredible work. And I think in 1980 there was a brilliant campaign for Perrier, the O campaign, and H2O, au revoir, no calories, au pair, Picasso, which went on to win the gold for best outdoor campaign in the UK that calendar year. So that was 1980. The one poster that stays with me to this day and is probably the original Theatre of the Street, Araldite. It also sticks handles.
That was the
teapots.
appropriate.
So that's the one that I've always had a passion for and always been my kind of standard of just think beyond borders. Think beyond. A canvas has no borders. A canvas is an infinite white canvas that allows your imagination to go as far as you need it to be. And a poster is gain attention, but gain imagination of people. But your imagination has to go to the next level. So that's there. The one I admire just because I admire him as a human being and was David Abbott. I mean, he was just brilliant. I won my first award when I was a very young teenager at Creative Circle, and it was presented to me by David, who was charming, generosity oozing out of him, and just couldn't do enough for you. And he was I just fell in love with his quality as a human being, but also his smarts and his passion to produce work that was intelligent, that was rooted in substance, but done with a smile, with a wit, with a kind of effortlessness, and that sort of humanity that shone through. So I never read The Economist management trainee, age 42. Again, is a timeless piece, and again, I think it's probably going to be there many times, with many people. That was the period of the Labour Party, Conservative Party, Saatchi's, with my affiliation with Saatchi's at the time. Labour Isn't Working wasn't the most beautiful looking poster at the time, but as a messaging at that moment in time, it was perfect. The one I absolutely love, because I'm a designer inside. My cousin is a renowned designer. I have this passion for beautiful art, beautiful design, and I love posters for that. Was the White Horse Whiskey by FCO in London.
Yes, Guy Moore talked about that.
And that just, it was immaculate. And again, it was how do you present the product and the combination of the product in a fresh, new, original way that grabs you by the eyeballs, that draws you in, that makes you analyze, makes you participate, makes you decode, and you are rewarded and rewarded and rewarded and rewarded. And each time you look at it, you marvel at the beauty of the art direction, the exquisite skill that went into that, the perfection of everything about it. Obviously, the photography by Lester. But the one campaign I loved was the Surreal campaign for Benson Hedges.
Right.
Because it was breakthrough. It was fresh. There was a massive business problem, and they just injected brilliant thinking, imaginative creativity to solve that problem with majestic work.
Yes.
And it was coming out of an agency at the time that was producing just immaculate stuff. Heineken, at the time, Heineken refreshes the parts that the beers cannot reach. You had Fiat, Collett Dickinson Pierce at the time was the agency. If you ever see a book, there's a book written about CDB's work, and you think of Alan Parker downstairs in the bowels of the earth in the production department. The people they had, Bob Isherwood there. It was the home of some of the best, finest talent in the industry, but their consistency and quality across their brand portfolio was something that I admired and always wanted to sort of imitate. And that was the goal. Going back to Leah Burnett, do your best work on your biggest brands. This was work that for me is timeless. Yeah. If I had to choose one, I couldn't.
Pyramids? No.
We normally close out with
possibly pyramids.
Possibly pyramids. Okay.
We normally close out with hints and tips for people, but I think if we just analyze these last two episodes, I think it's been chock full of them. But, if there's anything else you want to add as some closing thoughts, please, we'd love to hear.
No, I just think that posters or outdoor or billboards or theatre of the streets, call it what you want, is the only true mass medium left.
Yes.
It lives on the streets. It's part of popular culture. It's part of people's lives. It has the ability, done correctly, to talk to everybody, to talk with everybody, to communicate to everybody. It is that community notice board. It is that physical space that if you fill with brilliant, imaginative content and you infuse it with alchemy, it's the most potent communication channel, I think, available to us. And it's timeless as the oldest medium. I think it will be with us forever as long as we continue to populate that space with work that really is dynamic, interesting, and worthwhile. Yeah. Because people will look, people will absorb, people will take pictures of it. Best social media. The great thing about social media today, how many times I've seen brilliant outdoor work courtesy of social media. Yeah. So you've got the best media channel available to you through social media. So produce the quality of work that's worthy of being spread via social media.
That's a very good way to end it, because that is a very modern and current way of, looking at outdoors, isn't it? We've talked about.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on and giving us your time.
My pleasure.
It's been
thanks.
Absolutely
brilliant. Honestly,
great to see you both.
Yeah, really, really lovely, mate. We're so appreciative of you coming.
We just got to close out saying thanks to our new studio at Soho Radio and to our sponsors, Talon Outdoor. It's been great having you all for these last two episodes.
I hope I haven't been too squeaky on this seat. Apparently, Tuts was saying if I wore leather trousers.
Next time.
Next time. Okay.
Thanks very much for
Take care.
That was enjoyable. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Wow. So that's it. We've done Tuts. I can't believe it.
We've been talking a long time.
Yeah, I know.
And we could have done more.
I know.
I feel like I'm ready for a nap. It's it's exhausting, because just talking through some of the fine work that he's done.
It was amazing.
Over such
I felt bad rushing it towards the end, but
incredible career. Incredible career.
We could have done three. At one point I thought, can we do 3-parter? It's like, oh my God. We'd have to, no. So I think we did well to get it in 2.
Yeah, it was really good.
So much, some of the stories as well. It's like, we've had Finky, Hegsy, he's right up there, isn't he? With them. Different, on a different level, but brilliant. Absolutely loved it.
But if we had a marketing department and it wasn't just me, you and John, they would be slicing and dicing that podcast into sound bites and putting it out on our social channel.
Yeah. I think that thing about Theatre of the Streets is just one of the best things I've heard.
That's
I don't know, he's done it for ages, but in a way, when you sort of sit back a bit and you go, yeah, that, and the Theatre of the Streets, you should be getting a round of applause for what you did, or that's what you should be aiming for. Surely everyone in outdoors should be doing that.
Yeah. The standing ovation. Get the standing ovation. Your aim is a standing ovation.
I'm going to give you a standing ovation for just coming on here today and being the brilliant Dan that you are, hopefully for the rest of 2023.
That's really kind
and not being mean to me.
That's really kind of you to do that sitting down.
And I want to say that you and John, I really love you very much, but I want you to be nice to me in Cannes this year.
We were nice. We were singing
Just
to you.
singing that song, and I wasn't happy. We'll save that.
It's all about you.
Anyway, happy 2023 to all our listeners from me and Dan.
Thank you so much for listening. It's been a pleasure as always.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time.